Hello everyone, welcome to this demo on burning and dodging. Previously we covered how to resize a brush, how to lower the hardness or have hardness on a brush and the opacity. We also looked at layers and how to organize your layers and how the hierarchy works on Photoshop. We also started talking about mask previously and how black conceals and white reveals. Now that we have all that knowledge, we're going to put it together to improve this image that we have here. On this image, the foreground, you can see that is darker than the background that you can see in between these two rocks. The foreground is on the shade behind this rock, so it's a little bit darker. So we're going to use mask to balance out this difference of tones between the foreground and the background that's being lit by the sun. So to start, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my layers over here, and I'm going to duplicate my background. And the shortcut is Command J. So now I have a background and I have layer 1. And I'm doing that as a precaution in case I paint by accident, because I'm going to be using the brush on the mask, but sometimes by accident you might paint on the background, and you want to make sure that you keep an original untouched image, which is going to be your background. So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and rename this. You can put whatever name is more appropriate for you. I'm going to put Rito for retouching for short, just so I have a name. It's good to get in the habit of renaming your layers before you get, into very long layer hierarchy where you're confused and you don't know what's what. So since the beginning, get in the habit of doing that, of renaming your files. So now that I copy this background and I renamed it, the thing that I'm going to do now is try to raise the exposure on this foreground part of the image. So to do that, I'm going to use curves. We already talked about curves a little bit, so I'm going to go here. And under curves, there is this little icon right here that has a little hand. If you click on that hand, you can click on any part of your image. I'm going to select this area here, and you're going to click and you're going to hold down and pull up. So I'm not letting go of my mouth. And what that's going to do is you're telling the computer, okay, you're going to select this area and make it brighter on my curve. So you can see on the curve area on the right side that it added a dot right here. Okay. And as I was pulling up, it actually raised that level up. Now, we talked briefly about this, but since I'm pulling this up, you can see that it's pulling also a lot of the other tones here. You're welcome to also lower that if you want, so that way it doesn't raise. You can see the sky is getting a little bit darker because these are the highlights, this higher part here on the image. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit, not too much. And now that I have that, I need to make sure that I have this exactly how I need it. Now I could make another layer on top, which I'm going to go over in a little bit, to just make this even darker then. So that way this is actually dark, so we can have a nice sky. So this is our first adjustment that we're going to do, right? We kind of brighten up this part, but we want to keep this how it was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my curves right here. And there's two ways that you can do it. It doesn't matter which way you do it. You just have to know exactly which one you're going to do. So for example, I could paint with black and keep how this was originally, which is like that. If I hide the visibility, right? So if I paint with black here, this part here can become darker. So I'm going to select my brush tool, which is right here. You can select B for brush. So that's the other shortcut for that tool. And I'm going to make sure that I have black on the top. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my brush bigger, and I'm going to start painting here. You can see that it's doing a little bit of darkness. Now, you're not really making it dark. You're just hiding what this layer is doing and revealing the original image, which the sky was darker. Now it's a little bit lighter now because remember, we went on the curves and we brightened up everything. So it kind of made that brighter. So as I get closer to the edge, I will make my brush smaller because I want to make sure that I don't get too close to the rock, because when I get close, I need to zoom in and do a better job at painting the rock, so that way I don't have a line, a visible line there. So I just did that. Okay. Now remember, the shortcut to see how your mask is looking, you go here to the mask and you press Option and you click, and you'll see this. Right now I can see that I don't have any holes or anything like that here, so that's good. So now I'm going to go like that. And the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in, okay? Because as you get closer to this edge, you want to be zooming in. You don't want to be far away, okay? So you want to be zooming in so that way you can start making a better mask. Now, as you can see, I'm first going to try to get close, but not too close. I'm going to try to get everything really nicely. And I'm hitting spacebar to get the hand so I can move across my image, okay? So spacebar changes the cursor to the hand. If I let go, it will go away. So I'm holding it down, okay, so I can move around. But then when I let it go, then I paint. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, it's like great to kind of work around your image. So I go around here. Make sure all this is painted. So right now, you're not making too precise of a selection. You just want to make sure that you go around the edges, because we're going to go one more time around. Oh, if I do a mistake like that, remember, you can press X or click here. So that way you can undo anything that you did. I painted the rock a little bit there, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go around. Obviously, I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker. Because this is a demo, but when you do it, you can go a little bit slower. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more now, and I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. So with the left bracket key, remember that shortcut, you can make your brush smaller. And I'm going to make it something like that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And now I can get closer to my rock. All right, so I can go around like this because I already painted that. So now I can just go around my rock and kind of paint it. Now you have to be careful. I'm going to do it a little bit quicker. If you want to be really careful, you can make it even smaller and zoom in more. But because of this is a demo, I'm not going to do it that carefully. I'm going to go a little bit quicker. And you're going to see in a little bit how this looks. So you can get the idea that I started with a big brush. I painted everything. Oop, I did something here. I need to undo that. Press X again. And I can keep going. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because right now I have my brush with 0 hardness, okay? Which means that it's a little bit soft at the edge. So you won't see a visible line if you're careful. So for example here, I know there's some area here that is missing, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Right now, this is fine. I don't see any line here. I'm going to go on this side. Go there. I see that. I'm going to go here. Now, the thing that you're going to be looking for is see if you can notice anything. If you don't notice, don't worry about it. Nobody else will notice. You're zooming in right now. Right now, I'm at 400%. Which means that I'm really close. I usually, when I'm doing work like this, I go 200 or more. Usually 400 is a good number, 300. If you want to make sure that you do a good job, you want to be zooming in so that way you can really see all the detail. Right now here, I did a little bit of black on the rock, so I'm going to undo that. Make sure that this is clear. Okay. And then I go ahead and do this here. I'm getting close to the end. Now, of course, I'm not being super careful. Don't judge my Photoshop skills right now. I'm trying to do it as quick as I can to make sure that we get a decent image, but, so that I can see a halo right here. So that's not good. So I'm going to zoom in again and figure out a way of fixing that, which you do it with your brush. So I'm going to go actually on the rock, so that way I can do it backwards, because I think it will be easier if I do this and switch it to white. And now I'm a little bit more careful, so that way I don't end up with a halo around there. Okay, that's better. There we go. Let's see how that looks from far away. That's better. Okay, so right now, this is my mask, and you can see that there are holes, and that's why we want to do this. This part I don't care because there were trees there, but you do want to zoom in and, whoop, wrong one. X, let's flip it. That's the cool thing about a mouse. You can always redo it by switching between black and white. So right now I'm just covering this part that I'm noticing that it was white. So all of this. That was a big chunk that I missed right there. Look at that. That's why this shortcut to see your mask is so helpful. I'm actually very sloppy most of the time because I know I can go back and look at it like this and I can see what I missed. And then you can make it bigger, right? And you can go faster. You have to be careful not to get too close to the edge because you might end up in the rock. So that's a lot better, right? I have some area here and some areas here. Okay. We can paint this. It doesn't matter if it were plants. But now I ended up with the mask, right? So if I click here, now we can see what it's doing. You can see the before, right? So we basically line it up the foreground without touching that background, right? Now, the cool thing about this is that now that I have the mask, if I click here on this icon of the curves, I can reopen this and I can actually play with this now however I want without affecting that background. So I can make it really bright. Now, you have to be careful because the brighter you do it, look at this. You see all that? So you don't want to get too far away. You can actually do it on purpose like this so you can really see how to fix your mask. So you can go in there now and select your brush, go to your mask, and then make it smaller, right? And you can kind of like go around here and fix it. Later on, I'm going to show you more tricks on how to do a selection first to apply it to your mask. But in this case, this works. You're not going to do it this drastic where you will notice little things like this. But these little halos are the ones that will basically reveal your Photoshop on the image. So you want to be very careful how you do these masks. All right. So now that I have that, I can go here and then, re-bring it down. You won't notice that if you only do a little bit, on your image like that. It will be less drastic, the difference, okay, between the two. So now you can play with that. One thing that I want to point out, you can also change the softness of your mask. So if I go here, I'm going to go here and press Option and click, you will see that your mask, right, it's kind of sharp, right? But if I zoom in here, I want to show you this. On this window, once you have the mask selected, not this one, if I click here, you see that it goes to the curves. But if I click on the mask, it changes to the properties of the mask. Once you're there, you can change how soft the feather is going to be. I'm going to change it back to the mask view, which is Option. I click on the mask just so you see how it behaves. So the feather basically is how soft the transition is going to be on your mask. Right now it's from white to black. There's a little bit of softness, but not a lot. So you can go here. I'm going to do it drastic so you can see it. Look at that, right? So now it's very soft, that transition. Now that will affect your picture, sometimes in good ways, but sometimes in bad. So you have to be careful of the amount. So let's change it back to the normal view. Now you can see that that halo, it's softer. You can still see it. So that's a little bit too much. So you can play with this to see how soft that edge is. And you can find a sweet spot where it kind of blurs the line without affecting the rock too much. So let's say that you like it there. You can also change the density. Okay, so that means that you can change, let me show you what that looks like. If I click here, the density is how black that block is going to be. Okay, so right now it's at 100%. So that means that it's very, dark, all the way black. So if I lower the density, it's going to start changing to gray, which means that it's going to reveal a little bit what's happening on that adjustment of the brightness that we did, which is good because that way you can balance out to a point that you can find that the two blend well and you don't see that difference that much. Okay, so you can kind of like get it, let's say there, so it's a little bit brighter than before. I'm going to lower the feather a little bit, and let's see a before and after, right? So it improved the image significantly, right? You can be a lot more meticulous than what I was to doing the mask around here, but this is just an image so you can practice, right? So you can kind of see what you can do with the mask now that you know how to use it, in favor for your adjustment that we covered before. So now you can start to see how powerful the adjustment can be in combination with mask. So it's a great combination. You can use it with any of the adjustments right here. Every time you click an adjustment, it will have a mask. So for example, if I want to make the sky warmer or something like that, I can click on, let's say, the photo filter and have that orange tint to it. And let's say if I want to do that, right? So it's kind of orange. Now, one thing you can do is you can copy this mask onto here. So I'm going to do Option, click and drag it up and let go. And it's going to ask you to replace layer mask. And you're going to be, yeah, I want to do that. Now you can see that it has the same mask on both of them. So in this case, what this one is doing is actually doing the orange to the rocks because it's blocking it from the sky. But if you go here to the mask and you press Command I, you can invert it. So now you have the orange out there, but not on the rocks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the density all the way to 100 here. So then it's definitely blocking the rocks altogether. So that's how it's looking with that orange on the sky. Okay. So this is what I want you to do. You don't have to do the color. I just wanted to show you that you can combine as many masks and adjustments as you want. I'm going to delete that one. The one that I want you to do and try right now is doing this one right here, where you make the foreground brighter. Now, you don't have to do it with curves. You can do it with levels, or any of the other tools like brightness and contrast that you find useful for you. I do recommend the curves that you start getting used to it because it will give you a lot more capabilities on adjusting color, and the more points you can put more points to adjust different levels and contrast. So I recommend the curves, but if you feel like you're intimidated by it right now, go ahead and try the levels or something like that, and then later on you can start playing with the curves. Okay, so that is this lab that you're going to do, and that's for burning and dodging.